Hey friends, welcome back to the channel with another issues-focused video. Today we're watching more cinema therapy. It is about implicit bias in Zootopia. Really had a lot of fun watching Zootopia for my channel. It was one of my favorite movies that I've reacted to. And I thought it was actually brilliant the way the movie used implicit bias to teach lessons to the audience. And I, for one, think it's very difficult, probably impossible, to get to a place where you have zero implicit biases for several reasons. One is that there's just so much societal reinforcement, whether it's news media or anything else. And secondly, our brain automatically makes so many connections just subconsciously through pattern recognition. So I'm not saying we should just try to get rid of all of those implicit biases altogether, but I do think it's important to become more self aware and tackle some of your implicit biases, particularly if they're based on the circumstances of one's birth. People can't choose the race, their sexual orientation, their gender identity, their nationality, ethnicity, etc. Like, this isn't a create your own character kind of deal. So it's unfair to make judgments based on those kind of things, especially if those implicit biases winds up hurting those individuals. But I do think, I believe the technical definition of implicit biases are beliefs you have about a certain group that you aren't actually aware of. So it makes tackling those biases pretty difficult without the help of like outside influence, friends, a therapist. That being said, I myself definitely have a lot of biases that I am aware of, with the caveat being that most of them are based on the choices people make. Like, if you're a Trump supporter, or even who you voted for in the Democratic primary, I'll believe this, this, and this about you. If you're an environmentalist, if you're a flat earther, I'll believe this, this, and this about you. Because the choices you make can be a representation of your values. So I think those are less important to just focus in on and like try to eliminate from your own mind. Though you do have to realize that not everybody fits in not everybody fits so neatly into the categories that you make for them in your brain. But you know what? Let's just get right into the video so we can really focus in on what they're saying, so that I'm not just jabbering on and on about things that might be relevant to their conversation. So yeah, leave a like, really helps with the channel, and let's get started.
What? I gotta tell you, you are even cuter than I thought you'd be.
Can't actually say that.
No, but a bunny can call another bunny cute, but when other animals do it, it's a little...
I am so sorry.
That's good.
My name's Jonathan Decker. I'm a licensed therapist, and I love cute little fluffy animals.
Oh,
My name's Alan Seawright. I am an unlicensed filmmaker, and I love eating meat.
All right, well, we're gonna bridge the divide here. We're gonna watch Zootopia today, talk about Zootopia and implicit bias.
You may have noticed we're two white guys.
Yeah.
So in order to not just have a
Oh.
giant sign flashing
This is a white privilege.
we figured let's go with foxes and bunnies.
Yeah, we're not super qualified to discuss another person's experience, so we're gonna get a little distance and just explore the principle.
We figured let's go with foxes and bunnies.
Yeah.
I definitely appreciate that they've chosen to do that. It's likely a sign that they probably do have a good understanding of a lot of issues outside of their own lived experience. Just in the videos I've watched so far, they've been very empathetic, and I appreciate that about them.
So the principle of implicit bias is we all have biases and prejudices that we're not even aware of. Because you can think, well, I'm woke, right? I'm working through my issues, and you might think you've arrived and be completely blind to all of these underlying subconscious prejudices.
Hey, watch where you're going, Fox.
So this is the first time we meet Nick the fox.
That's interesting that she sees this guy yell at Nick, but her first instinct isn't to question the person, the lamb, the sheep, who's yelling at somebody in the road when Nick has the right of way as a pedestrian, but to actually be suspicious of Nick because he's a fox.
Listen, buddy, what? There aren't any Fox ice cream joints in your part of town?
No, there are. It's just
Your
my
part of
boy,
town.
This goofy little
Yeah.
He loves all things elephant. Wants to be.
So once again, she's very tuned in that explicit bias is wrong.
Oh, sure.
And so when she hears what she perceives as, well, not what perceives, what is explicit bias from the shopkeeper, she stops and she's like, no, I'm going to stand up for him. Even though moments before, she was thinking, oh, he's up to no good because he's a fox.
Right.
And she wasn't even aware that she was thinking.
Just want to say you're a great dad and just a A real articulate fella.
Yeah, so what I was saying when I watched this movie is that that phrase is so condescending, and she doesn't realize it, because what she means is you're so articulate for a fox. And she doesn't realize she's saying that, and she doesn't realize she's condescending, but that's what's happening there.
Oh, well, that is high praise. It's rare that I find someone so non-patronizing.
And he's being sarcastic here, but she doesn't catch it. She does not catch that.
Yeah. A real articulate fella. Go ahead.
It's
there we go. Here we go.
It's the perfect encapsulation of implicit bias, right?
Right.
Because it's a compliment. In this scenario, the reason it's showing implicit bias is the implication is you're articulate, but other foxes aren't.
Right. You're a credit to your kind.
Right.
Yeah.
When I was in graduate school.
We both grew up in pretty white
Yeah.
areas.
Yeah.
Like relatively segregated, with parents who are absolutely not racist at all. But I don't know about you. I was taught.
They're not explicitly racist.
I think we're
That's
all
not
a little
knock on
racist.
Our
No, no.
parents, like we
Yeah.
all have implicit biases that need to be checked.
Well, I look at my parents and then I look at their parents.
Yeah.
And their parents were explicitly racist constantly. My parents
Yikes.
are implicitly racist constantly.
You know what? Pretty much all predators, and Zootopia is full of them.
Oh, Stu.
And foxes are the worst.
So in this case, he's being Judy's father is being explicitly racist, and her mom is trying to rein that in because she knows that it's socially taboo for him to say these things out loud. But she still has some of those feelings deep down because, as you see later in this scene, she's like, "Oh yeah, it's true about foxes, what they say."
Actually, your father does have a point there. It's in their biology.
And
Oh, it's in their biology. I've heard this. Like, I've heard many Asian friends talk about their immigrant parents and how they believe that black people are just inherently, they're born more violent, they're born in certain ways, and it's just the most ridiculous thing you can, like, think of. It just seems like a perfectly reasonable explanation to them, which is just mind-blowing.
you know, back to the way we were raised, it's just, I was taught to not see color.
But yeah, the idea of not seeing color is just so backward because if you're truly colorblind, you kind of refuse to see how society treats people differently based on their race. You could be blind in other ways based on their sexual orientation or etc. And you refuse to learn about their culture or their lived experiences because, oh, we're all the same. And a part of what makes that so prevalent is this idea that our world is a meritocracy, which it absolutely is not. Hard work and intelligence can take you places, but to say that anyone can be anything, like Judy believes is true at the start of Zootopia, is ignoring the societal issues that prevent that from happening. Now, at the end, she says that real life is more complicated, but she still believes in the ideal that anyone can be anything, and that's what she's willing to fight for, and I think that's very admirable. But she starts to recognize that there are things that hold people back based on what they're born as.
But that's the absence of racism. It's not the presence of finding ways to rid yourself of implicit bias.
Because if you say we're all the same, what you're saying is actually, I'm denying your heritage.
Yes,
your
exactly.
heritage, my
Precisely.
heritage doesn't matter.
Well, and the fact that you grew up a fox in a bunny's world, you know, to use that metaphor,
Yeah.
I'm denying that things may have been different for you growing up.
And like Judy
Right.
Hopps here sees herself as a very enlightened bunny.
Remember
I think
what
that,
happened with Gideon Gray?
yeah.
When I was 9.
I think that is often the case with a lot of people who think they've rid themselves of all of their implicit biases, but still hold some very harmful views based on stereotypes. And for me, every instance of implicit bias I've tried to find and get rid of, I'm sure there's something within my mind that is doing a disservice to people the way I group them. It's not to say you're a bad person if you have implicit biases. It's just to say that there are things you can do to make yourself a better person, to be more empathetic, be more sympathetic.
The problem with implicit bias is we think, okay, I don't look like that, I don't act like that, therefore I'm good.
Right, yeah.
It's benign in intent and so damaging.
So insidious
Right.
because it seems like it's not a problem.
Right, you're giving yourself like a free pass, just saying, oh, I'm not as bad as those guys, so I'm fine.
Whereas if you did something like this,
A real articulate fella.
it's so hard to convince you that you've done anything wrong.
I was
because-
being
Right,
nice. I said
right,
he was
right.
articulate.
Exactly. My
Ah.
intentions are good, therefore my behavior is good.
Right.
And one thing I know, just taking a step back from implicit bias,
Okay, that's a really interesting point. Your intentions, people think their intentions are good, so they must be good themselves. This is something I had to learn to definitely become a better person. It's that you need to take responsibility for your actions and not just your intentions. Because, oh, I didn't mean it that way is not an excuse for the pain you've caused. Regardless of your intentions, you still caused that pain, you still made someone uncomfortable. And I mean, there's a reason you can still get convicted of manslaughter even if you didn't intend on killing anyone. And it's definitely a lesson I wish I learned much younger. It would have helped me so much in understanding myself and my actions. And I think it's somewhat of a complicated concept, but it's definitely something we should teach to our children because oftentimes if we tell them they've done something wrong, they think, oh, I must be like, am I a bad kid for doing this? But it's similar to the idea that you're not a bad kid, but you did a bad thing. There's a difference there, there's nuance there. Similarly, after a lot of self-reflection, I've realized that I've never done anything specifically to hurt somebody, but that doesn't mean I haven't done bad things and I haven't hurt people. That doesn't mean I'm not a good person. It just means I have to hold myself accountable for the mistakes I've made. And it's important to realize that, oh, I didn't mean to do that. I didn't mean to hurt you. I didn't mean it that way is not an excuse for the pain you've caused.
And the big thing with implicit bias is I can't say my intentions are good, therefore no harm, no foul. And that's the biggest thing that I see with people who don't believe that we still have a race problem. We don't believe we still have prejudice problems. Is like, well, my intentions are good, and my friends aren't burning crosses. And
Such a low
look, we've got
bar.
a black guy in
Such
our
a
group,
low,
so,
low
like,
bar.
We're
good,
totally,
right?
Yeah, we're totally open-minded. And it's like, well, okay, you're not as bad as the Klan. Good job.
Congratulations. You're not committing hate crimes. Yay.
But we need to be aware of what's underneath.
The animals in question,
Okay, so what is the connection?
all we know is that they are all members of the predator family.
So, predators are the only ones going savage.
That is yes, that is accurate, yes.
Why? Why is this happening?
We still don't know.
So we found a group.
It
This hurt to
may
watch.
have something to do with biology.
What do you mean by that?
And this is, you know, taking something that she overheard that may or may not be accurate.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's hard to rid yourself of things that just come into your subconsciousness. And we see that here she doesn't mean to hurt Nick, but of course she does. And the way she apologizes afterward, I think is a very good apology. And I wish I had that kind of example when I was growing up.
You see little kids of different colors, and it's like, oh, hey, you're dark, I'm light, haha, and then they play.
Cool. And then
It's
not
not.
an
It's
issue.
not even a thing. And
Right.
the thing is about prejudice is it's a million different stimuli. It's a million different messages that were fed explicitly.
And you can't
implicitly,
filter
day in,
all of
day out
that
until
and
layer
be
upon
conscious of
layer upon
everything.
layer is built. So even
Right.
if you're raised in a progressive family, or even if you're raised, as we were, by parents who teach you, everyone of every skin color is
Underneath, we're all the same.
yeah, underneath we're all the same and all this stuff, you still get the messaging.
Yep.
Right.
And then to undo it also takes layer by layer by layer.
It's a thing that has just been programmed into you by growing up in our society, right?
Yeah.
And the only way to get at it is to constantly think. You can't just coast through life relaxed anymore.
You can't assume you've arrived. Because what's Judy Hopps? She's like at this place of, she thinks enlightenment, like, I'm friends with a fox, and I know he's a good person, and I'll go so far as to say I want him as my partner.
Oh, that went so fast. I didn't get a chance to mention you or say anything about
I
how
think
we
you said plenty.
You said plenty.
Nick, stop it. You're not like them.
Oh, there's a
There's a them
You
now.
know what
There's
I
nothing
mean?
she can say
You're
at this
that kind
point.
of predator.
The kind that needs to be muscled? The kind that makes you think you need to carry around fox repellent? Yeah, don't think I didn't notice that little item the first time we met.
Wait a second. I didn't take a close enough
Probably
look
best
before.
if you don't have a predator.
Look at this. I never took a close enough. You have to check off what kind of type you are, prey or predator. Whoa. Wow. Describe any specialties: night vision, excellent sense of smell, business savvy, if that's what you call if that's what you call hustling is. Have you ever been arrested? He checks yes and crosses it out. Interesting.
You know, going back through my life history, like how many times have I said something or done something that, you know, unintentionally may have caused pain or hurt somebody like that. And it's sobering to think about, because I guarantee that I have said and done things.
Yeah. The saddest part about that statement for me, because I'm the same way, is that not everybody is going to act like Nick does, where he calls her out on it.
Right.
Because a lot of people, they are punished for standing up. It could be violence against them. It could be legal action against them. It could also just be social punishment. The point is, like, I look back at my life, what things have I said or done, and because my friend of color or my friend who's gay or my friend who's this or that laughed about it, I thought, oh, see,
it's fine.
It's fine.
Yeah.
I think in some ways I'm lucky because I have a high level of empathy. My friends will say that it's because I'm a Pisces. Maybe that has something to do with it. There were times when I was younger where I didn't see signs that something I did made somebody uncomfortable. But once I made the conscious effort to pay attention to people's body language and other signs, it's actually pretty easy for me to tell when somebody's put off by something I've said, even if they try to play it off as they start to laugh or whatever. So I'm lucky that I can sense that and apologize for it, even if I just take a little time to think about it and realize that it's offensive in some way. In other ways, though, having a high level of empathy can be kind of destructive. There are times when I feel other people's pain as if it's my own, even if I have no personal connection to them. And that can be extremely emotionally draining because there's always suffering out there if you're going to look for it. But I do think paying attention to social cues can help in seeing how you affect another person. Definitely helps if you interact with them in person. During COVID, when I'm just like messaging everybody, it's a little harder to pick up on cues that I normally would if it was a face-to-face conversation. So yeah.
But I don't like the little ones going near him on account of what happened to your Uncle Terry.
Yeah, Terry ate one hole when we were kids and went completely nuts.
He bit the dickens out of your mother.
But it's being purposely administered to predatory animals.
To cause a race riot, essentially.
Yeah, essentially.
Essentially,
so that they look bad.
Oh, Nick. Night howlers aren't wolves.
Start with the apology, though.
Flowers. I think someone is targeting predators on purpose and making them go savage.
Not leading with an apology.
Wow.
Right.
Isn't that interesting?
Wait, please.
She recovers,
I know
though.
You'll never forgive me, and I don't blame you. I wouldn't forgive me either.
Getting
I
warmer.
was ignorant and irresponsible and
small-minded.
But predators shouldn't suffer because of my mistakes. I have to fix this.
So as a therapist,
I can't do it without you.
how important is apology, and how good of an apology?
Ooh, yes, I would love to hear about this.
Feels like a really effective.
And that'll be fine because I was a
Horrible
friend.
friend.
And I hurt you, and you.
Such a good
you
scene.
Walk away knowing that you were right.
I'll answer. I'm
all
just
along.
enjoying this.
I really am just
a dumb bunny.
Great performance, great writing.
I really am just a dumb bunny. I really am just a dumb bunny.
Thunk.
Okay, oh, you bunnies. You're so emotional. Deep breath. Are you just trying to steal the pen? Is that what this is?
The mark of a real apology is that it's less about... He's crying again.
Aww.
I love this man.
I can't.
What is this?
I'm not mocking
Alan's
you. I
need
just
for
think it's-
therapy.
I'm laughing because when a true
Progress.
apology is not about getting a certain reaction from the other person.
Right. For those of you who know about love languages, there was another quiz on that site about love languages, also about apology languages. And for me, there were questions that said like, oh, do you prefer if somebody asks for your forgiveness? And those always ranked really low for me because my thinking is that while you probably want my forgiveness, it is not your place to ask for it. Like when you apologize, you shouldn't be asking for a certain reaction from the other person. And I think he's spot on with this for sure.
Like if the relationship is repaired, it's icing on the cake. But what it really is I hurt you. I can't undo that, but I can't acknowledge that I'm the one that hurt you.
Sure.
And I made it seem like it was you, and I tried to act like it was you, but it wasn't.
This is why everybody should go to therapy. Now, obviously, this is a lesson you can learn outside of therapy. I learned this before I went to therapy because I had a very understanding friend who explained what an apology should be to me. But obviously, if you go to therapy early in your life, you can prevent a lot of pain caused to other people by not learning how to apologize correctly or any other number of things that come from unresolved issues.
Now, the thing about Nick here, like most people, in the face of a truly broken heart, not one of these like half apologies where you start to apologize and then take a hard left into blame.
I'm sorry I offended you.
I'm sorry you felt that way.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Most people in the face of that will do exactly what he did. At our core, we want connection, we want relationships, and this is how real growth happens.
So yeah, this is the so yeah, recently there was an apology given by my governor, the governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, where he's been accused of sexual harassment and sexual assault several times, and his response to that was it wasn't even a fake apology. He just said some of the things I've done made people uncomfortable. That doesn't mean it was harassment. It just means you are uncomfortable. And so that is even worse than that's not even an apology, but he won't even acknowledge that anything is his fault. Like he was saying that the results of my actions are not my fault. It's the perfect example of him thinking his intentions are good, so therefore his actions should not be judged whatsoever. He also put a bunch of people back into nursing homes who had active COVID and wound up killing so many people like that, and also wound up covering up the evidence, threatening a congressman who had the ability to reveal that to the press. And I don't understand how people still think like he's this great person. Hopefully, he does not run for president anytime soon or ever. Anyway, back to this.
Because one of the things about, you see Nick early on, he is playing the part. He's adhering to the stereotypes. I mean, foxes are sly and crafty and manipulative and deceitful, and he is all those things. But he says,
if the world's only gonna see a fox as shifty and untrustworthy, there's no point in trying to be anything else.
So yeah, that is part of the very real damage that we do to people if we hold these implicit biases. And this writing is so good. I so appreciate this movie.
And so many times people are taught this is the only way you can be. This is the only way that this is how people see you anyways.
Yeah, so just accept your stereotype and be the best version of that or the whatever version of that.
Right. Yeah. When we treat people according to their potential, when we treat them with the respect that they deserve, it's amazing how many people
live up to that.
Yeah.
Because it's what they've always wanted.
Well, the golden rule worked.
Early on, she starts to treat him as someone who can be trusted. It's who he always wanted to be anyways.
Right.
Yeah, he adapts to it really quickly.
And then she betrays that unintentionally through implicit bias. But once she really steps into it and takes full ownership, he comes all the way to where what's beautiful about Nick's arc in this is who he is right here is who he always wanted to be. Mm-hmm. Most people want to be good. And what people call white privilege, I often think of it as majority privilege.
Majority privilege.
And the form it takes here is majority white, right? So there is explicit, harsh, mean, nasty, cross-burning bias. And then there's implicit bias, which means, well, we look after our own without even thinking to look after the other person.
Go back to the forest, predator!
I'm from the savannah.
And they're not even thinking about these poor predators. And that's what Judy, that's what she realizes. She says,
but predators shouldn't suffer because of my mistakes.
And so when we talk about this deep-seated implicit bias, institutionalized racism, it takes so many forms. And what we're talking about today is good people who are trying to be egalitarian, who are trying to be fair-minded, who are trying to love their neighbor, and being in tune with there's still more work to do. There's more layers to go through.
Yeah, this is excellent. This is an excellent, excellent video. Bravo to these two. I think something important to recognize is that there are so many things in society that reinforce the way you think about somebody.
I thought Zootopia was this perfect place where everyone got along and
Anyone could be anything. This is
Turns
exactly the
out-
scene
When I
I
was a
mentioned
kid,
before.
I thought America was this perfect place.
Real life is messy. The biggest elephant
To our
our
first
first
fox.
fox.
I implore you,
I
try.
implore you, try. Try to make the world a better place. Look inside yourself and recognize that change starts with you. It starts with me.
Such a good film.
It starts with all of us.
So you brought up a couple of times that you love the size difference
Yeah.
between the characters. I mean, part of it is just, you know, you get to do fun things like
Oh yeah.
having Judy Hopps chasing that weasel through Tiny Town where everything is miniature, which is great.
And actually, yeah, like you need more police that represent the people in that they're policing, which just touches on another issue entirely. Is Zootopia police propaganda somehow? I'll think about that another time. But can you imagine a bigger mammal trying to chase Mr. Weaselton through Mouse City? They would just be destroying everything left and right. And they don't understand the needs of mice community unless they worked really hard towards doing that. Obviously, this gets much more complicated in a fictional city where everybody is different. There's everybody from everywhere. And that's the same with the city I lived in, New York, and in the country of the United States, where I believe we're the most diverse country in the world. I don't fact check me on that and get back to me if I'm wrong. But with that, unless people try to recognize and resolve their explicit and implicit biases, there's going to be a lot of natural tension because of that.
And the insane public transit system that can accommodate giraffes and voles and everything,
and everything in between, yeah.
which is super fun. But one of the things that I love about it is because the characters aren't human in this, if they were all the same size, it would be really, really easy as a human to just look at them and go, oh, they're all the same. They're all just animals.
But here you see the disparity.
But here you see the disparity, and it's a very obvious visual representation of, hey, we got differences here.
You know, actually, when she talks about, I dreamed of a world where anyone could be anything, and Zootopia was this place where everyone could get along. And you see these two different species, animals playing together, and they're the same size, which is not going to last.
Right.
That feeds into thematically, the world
Wow.
is actually more complex. And if we're going to give each other a seat at the table, we first have to recognize that there are people who aren't at the table.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And like stop buying into the myth that they're happy to not be at the table.
Yeah, there are no mice police
Particularly in
officers.
America,
And there weren't any foxes or
have this
bunnies.
very egalitarian view of what America is. It's a meritocracy, right? The
Yeah.
people who
I
are
was
the
just talking
best
about this.
get ahead, and everyone who doesn't,
Right, land
it's
of
kind
opportunity.
of their fault.
Right, yeah.
And that's
Right.
frankly just untrue.
Yeah.
It's a great myth to found a country on.
So if I can tweak it slightly from myth to ideal.
Yeah, ideal. There we go.
So this is what we should be, right? This is what we should strive towards.
Yeah, I guess the myth is believing that
That we've already gotten there. Yeah, these guys are spot on. I love it. I love it.
Zootopia is a unique place. It's a crazy, beautiful, diverse city where we celebrate our differences. This is not the Zootopia I know.
I do have a little bit of an issue with the words Gazelle uses. I do think this is what Zootopia is. There is a lot of that bubbling under the surface. And every time there's been a hate crime or there's violence, our current president, Joe Biden, says, this is not what America is, when it so clearly is, and we need to recognize it, and we need to reckon with that in order to move forward. I get what he's saying is, this is not what America should be. The myth, I guess in this case, to use the analogy they just made, the myth is that we are already in a post-racial society, and it's a good ideal to have, but we haven't gotten there yet. So I like the idea that when there is racial hatred that exposes itself, I would like it a lot more if Biden says this is not who we should be, and this is something that we strive to fight against.
Zootopia is not a utopia. America is not the land of the free and the home of the brave, but it can be. And to me, that is the most powerful part of this film, and that is the message for all of us, is that we can help each other get there.
And you can help us get there by liking, subscribing, and
Nice,
clicking the bell.
nice segue.
It was so crass, it just felt inevitable. Anyway, follow us on social media at therapy_cinema on Twitter and Instagram. Look for us on Facebook.
Well, there you have it. I think they did a really good job tackling this issue in spite of not having any or much lived experience. I definitely talked a lot more about Zootopia and specifically in my reaction to Zootopia, so I'll include a link to that in the description. I'll also link their original full video in the description as well. But yeah, I think it's good to continue working on peeling back these layers of implicit biases, and it starts, I think, with coming from a place of being humble and a desire to understand other people's experiences. I've dealt personally with a lot of people who can't wait to get in the next word so much that they're not even listening to you when you're trying to tell them something. I realized that I didn't want to make people feel that way, so I've made an effort to really listen and try to take in what people are thinking and saying. I actually prefer to not even think of myself as woke because I don't think anyone can fully understand every single issue. You are varying amounts of woke, and to put that label on myself personally, it makes me feel like I'm saying that I'm a finished product. I also don't call myself an ally or a feminist. If other people call me those things, I'm very happy. But someone once commented on a video of mine saying, "We stan a woke king," and I was like, that's freaking hilarious, and I love it. Though if you do what I do and don't call yourself woke, you don't call yourself a feminist or an ally, I think you should be careful that you explain properly what you mean. If I'm meeting somebody for the first time and I say I don't call myself a feminist, people will naturally be like, you don't support women's rights? It's like, no, I support them and I fight for them, but I don't feel comfortable calling myself a feminist because I feel like I'm still learning and still growing. And that might be always the case because I can't have that lived experience. But yeah, just be careful if you decide to do this a similar thing and not call yourself by these labels, that you properly explain the nuance behind it. Anyway, I feel like I've gotten off topic. This movie is great, and Alan and Jonathan are great at analyzing these films. I've really loved watching their videos. So yeah, check out their full video in the link in the description below. But all right, let me know, guys, if there are other videos from different channels that you'd like to see or any channel recommendations for me that focus on social issues. And as always, thanks for watching. Leave a like, really helps with the channel, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, friends.